Hi, I'm here with Shanling's M0. This is a neat little DAP. Neat as in it's tiny. To give you an idea, this is just stick some IMs in the way. The IMs and wound up cable are bigger than the DAP itself. It is pretty small, and so I'm very zoomed in here. Zoomed in enough that my good old M9 will only just fit in the screen. But we're looking at something small here because, well, Shanling sent one to me to check out. And I've got this little clip case here. And they sent me purple, which was unexpected. I guess purple's not a big selling one, so a good one to send off for review. And it's got a pretty screen. That Cowboy Junkies album comes up nicely. It's got USB-C too. That doesn't mean it's USB 3 necessarily, but it's got a USB-C connector, for better or for worse. And you can see like it's thinner than my thumb, although it's still pretty chunky. It's just small and chunky. I'm guessing that they, being not the largest company in the world, not like Apple, can only get a certain limited range of OEM batteries and probably have to build around that to a degree. And it's only got a 3.5mm out. I mean, if you're this kind of range, if you're thinking, oh, why can't I get balanced? I mean, just you're asking the wrong questions. So it's a basic DAP. It takes a micro SD card. I put a 200 gig in there with no problems. I'm not sure the maximum size. You'd have to check the specs. And it powers on. It was powered on. Powers on like so, and it powers on fast because it's not Android, and you come up to this pretty screen. So from this pretty screen, you can see all the controls are pretty small. You've got my finger that has to point to this small area in here. This is my initial complaint about the UI. It's a big waste of space, and you swipe to do everything, more or less, through from the playback screen. You can add to a playlist, you can find info, get info, and go to the playback settings. But they should have used it a bit more efficiently, I reckon. They should have made the controls look a bit larger. I mean, a few pixels up, a few pixels more compact for the stuff that needs to be compact, and bigger playback buttons would have been nicer. My other gripe, so to go back to the main screen, you have to press and hold. Now, then you have these 5 swipe through options. Folders, playback, system, now playing, my music. And what they should have done is just put 4 buttons on here. They should have consolidated either playback into the system settings or consolidated folders into the My Music settings, one or the other, and then just have 4 buttons on here would have been much better than, why do I have to swipe through everything? See, it's not really efficient use of space. It seems like, I call it like people think they're thinking, but they're not really thinking. And it looks like someone, designed something for a larger DAP, which will become readily apparent in a minute when I go through the options. And then to make it look pretty, but then didn't think about the fact that it has to be used on a really tiny screen, and this is going to be highly irritating. Most of it's fine. Update music, it'll check what's on the SD card. Bluetooth, which has got a lot of options. It's got LDAC, HQ, LDAC, APTx. It doesn't have APTx HD, but if you're going to complain about APTx to HD on something around the $100 mark, you're doing it wrong. It's just not going to make any difference. But the LDAC thing was nice. Search, got the good old Bluetooth paired stuff here, and good old brightness, the screen off time, idle off, which accidentally got knocked to 1 minute because I've been playing around with it. Auto standby, auto shutdown, you can have one or the other. I have auto shutdown because I end up flattening the batteries and everything that's sitting around here for any time. Sleep timer if you want to use it, to go to sleep. Here's another thing. Why does it say USB mod? Well, this is a problem with the screen. So anything that gets cut off, you can just see, like if I put it at an angle, you see this grey patch there to say that something's been cut off. But there's no way... Oh! Now it does it. I've actually just spent ages trying to read stuff by swiping and it wouldn't do it, and it just does it now for the first time when I actually shoot the video. Really, really irritating. Anyway, it cuts off everything, so volume lock. I was swiping from over here and nothing was happening. Clock, as usual, you can set. Wheel shortcuts are pretty cool. So the wheel is just the volume control, but if you can have double click and triple click, can either be last, next, or play, pause. I wish triple click would bring you back to the home screen. That would be actually useful more than this press and hold, which doesn't always work. DSD mode, your usual things if you know what that's about. Output, the DSD output. Output O, and this is the problem. You go here and you go, well, what's it do? Line out mode. And so if now is it going to let me swipe? output options. Now it's going to show up. Theme, and this is because it comes in different colors, obviously. You can go through the pretty themes here, which I don't care about. Okay, languages would be useful if you're in another country. These are your language options. And about MO, I've got version 2.2 of the software. So if you're watching this far in the future and you go, hey, the options are different to what I heard about, and it's like because I've got an older firmware than maybe what you're watching. Factory setting reset and system update if you want to update from a file on the micro SD card. And you also have your playback options, which you can access from the now playing screen. Max volume, which is handy if you're giving it to a kid to use. Default volume, which is cool because you don't want to blow your ears out when you power it on. Forget that you're actually using, say, the line out mode or whatever. 20 is nice. It's actually pretty quiet. Then resume mode, whether it's off, track, or location, whether it brings you to the home screen or not, I suppose. Gapless playback as usual. EQ doesn't give you can't EQ anything. It's just got a whole bunch of presets. Gain, high or low, which is probably just an electronic setting. It doesn't do anything particularly fancy. Filter, I guess the built-in DAC is one from mobile phones, so it has a variety of filter settings, which kind of more or less slow roll-off filters will kind of be more closed-in sounding but softer, and brick wall, which it defaults to, will be more wide open sounding. You can play around with that. It's not kind of something you really care about in something this price. Play mode, of course, repeat track, shuffle, repeat all. Folder skip. Let's find out what that is. Folder skip. So it means whether it jumps through folders, I guess. And that's pretty much it. The one irritating thing, this is about the small screen. So you're going to My Music, and we'll go to, say, Album, or actually Artist will do. Now you just have this icon on the side which just wastes space, which would be fine on a larger DAP, but then we have a guy called Jet. Oh, well, I know what he is. That's not a problem. But you get down here and you go to, say, there was only one not far down. Cannonball Adderley. Now you see Cannonball Adderley there's 2 entries for him because you might have something like Bill Evans and Bill Evans Trio. And if it's a long name, it might be Cannonball Adderley and somebody, or in a band. And you can't tell which is which from here. It's stupid. Why bother with this overflow when if you actually got rid of this, didn't have this icon in the first place, it'd be fine. Or just have it overflow into the second line. And it does this because if you go down to frequent or recent, they can do 2 lines. So you can do this. You can do this properly. And if they actually took the time to think about what they were doing, and at least here in this last one that shows you which kind of file it is, DSF or FLAC. But in most of the others, it's kind of just, they could eliminate a lot of wasted space with the UI. So now I have to get back to the home screen. I have to press and hold, and does it work? I want to get back to the home screen. Come on. There we go. That's irritating. What they should have done and made it swipe up, go back to the home screen, would have been much easier. But otherwise, actually they do manage to get a lot of stuff in here that you can do. And so you want to know how it sounds. It sounds pretty decent. It's not going to... It had a bit of hiss with the good old Andromedas. I've got them here. Not enough to be seriously irritating. It's still listenable, but there's a bit of hiss. So it wasn't that fantastic. Most stuff, I usually use them with IEMs. Playback was fine. And in terms of sound quality, it hasn't got much power, so it's not going to do anything really fantastic. But it was initially, when I got it out of the box, it sounded a bit harsh, and then that harshness went away pretty quick. And then it was quite listenable and quite usable. And I thought, well, I'll do the usual tests. I've got a good old Continental V5, which again just fits in the screen, and plug it in and see what happens. And put the volume at maximum, which is the same as line out mode, because there isn't a dedicated line out. I mean, come on, it's a $100 item. It's around $100 DAP. You're not going to get anything fancy. And there was more kind of space and detail and that kind of thing came through with headphones. Not surprisingly, this has got more power. Okay, so I'll plug in the good old M9 on top instead of the MO, and there was better sound quality still. So it's a bit behind the M9, which is still a fairly low-powered DAP as well. And it powered headphones basically okay. Powered my little Audio Technicas. The SW9 Limited's okay. And of course, with everything powering better with an amp or better devices. But it sounded fine. I mean, again, it uses a chip that's usually stuck in mobile phones. So There's no complaints there. So I thought I'd try Bluetooth, and I tried Bluetooth with the Odyssey Mobius. And, that uses LDAC and LDAC HQ. I could go 3 rooms away, and then it would start to cut out. But noting that I am in a house with only not a lot of, wireless stuff around, some, but not a lot. So, someone walking through the middle of a crowd, say Los Angeles or New York or London, with probably an absolute ton of wireless stuff going on, they've heard people who've bought some Bluetooth thing and it wouldn't even work between their pocket and their Bluetooth headphones. So your mileage may vary there. I used it as a transport, like I did the Fio's M9. That wasn't quite so successful. It started getting, it started popping, and the playback wasn't so great. The funny thing is, this is a DSD album. This will play DSD fine, which in DSD is pretty demanding on battery life, to earphones, but it won't play it. Playing stuff through anything through the digital output to say a Mojo, it just wasn't too happy at all. So that was kind of a failure. You can use it in USB DAC mode if you want to use it with a smartphone that can output audio, and then you can use it in that way, and that'll work fine. A bit fiddly, but it'll do the job. Probably more useful is if you have Bluetooth headphones. Put it in its little clip, stick it on your belt or whatever, or clothes or whatever, and listen away like the old Apple iPod Nano. And if the user interface wasn't a bit fiddly, this swiping thing, I have to remember with the M9, I have to remember to swipe gently, and then with this I have to remember to swipe firmly, and then it works. And at least one person I know got frustrated with the UI and gave up on it and sent it back or sold it on, I don't know. The only other thing is, and this is, you're not going to be able to unsee this once I show you this. Now, notice anything? It's not straight. And there are no screws on here, so you can't unscrew it and adjust it, but it looks like when they put the whole electronics in from the top and then glued it in place. And you can see like the dots are closer down the bottom, closer to the edge of the screen down the bottom than they are at the top. It's very slightly skew. All the same, there's your basic options. It's not going to do, a better DAP's going to sound better, but it's going to sound good enough. That's how it did. I'm not going to go into super fine detail. It kind of had a clear sound. It didn't have any coloration that I could generally detect, aside from maybe the subtlest changes with the filters. It just did the job. And so that's the MO. And if you can withstand the slightly frustrating user interface, which could have been better thought out, and just something basic to say, go jogging with or use in the gym or whatever, and if you lose it or whatever, you're not going to be too upset. That will probably be fine, and especially with Bluetooth headphones, you can get good quality playback. Thanks for watching the video. Before you go, did you know that my videos are entirely supported by people like you? For the equivalent of buying me a coffee once in a while, you'll get to see the rough cuts in advance. You can also interact with me on chat or email me for advice, or generally interact with the little community we have going of Patreon supporters. Head over to patreon.com/Currawong for more information. Also, there'll be written reviews of this product on my website, which you can access easily at here.reviews. And if you don't want to sign up to be a patron, you can also support my videos by buying your headphones through the links on the sidebar. And in doing so, you'll help support independent reviews. Anyway, thank you very much, and I'll see you online.